Pick it up at the end. And at this time, I'll pass around the microphone for the self-introductions.
Go, hey, listen. There's schedule here. Chapter 63 here, McKinney. And Carol, this again.
Hi, my name is Stuart Younger, and this is my son Jack Younger. This is our first time going to a Sons of the American Revolution meeting. Yeah, I'm looking to join. Yeah, really excited to be here.
I'm Jerry Lucas, another World City application here. You want to see it? Appreciate it.
We will. Welcome.
This is the Jerry table. I'm Jerry Kenny, chapter 600.
I'm Scott Kingsley. I get inducted tonight.
Mandy.
Jim Akers, this is my wife Sandy. Hi, I'm Pete McClellan and I live here in McKinney. Nathan White, here in McKinney, my wife Wanda.
Everyone, my name is Casey Booth. I came to meet Richard. Yeah, I'm submitting an application today. Thanks for Richard helping me a lot over the past few months. So today we'll submit that, and that's my second meeting. So hopefully I'll see you all a lot more in the future.
Alex Pounders, member, but back in town from Corpus Christi.
Okay.
Tracy Pounders, your state president for another 2.5 months.
Joe Chenoweth, member of this chapter, I live in Allen.
Your order, King chapter.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm John Graham with McKinney chapter.
Kevin Ennis with McKinney and Toledo chapters, and I've got one more supplement because I need to.
Oh, what's up? For a long time, a lot of different chapters. Whatever.
Richard Bonaparte, registrar in McKinney, my wife Lynn.
Tom Wilson, my wife Carol, here in McKinney.
Plus Ruby secretary, and on Zoom we have Tom Whitlock, Bob Noe, Kerry Barnett, and Keith Pierce.
Thanks. Hey, Tom.
Paul Andreessen, McKinney chapter. And I am Mark McCraw, your outgoing and lamed up president. And Tom, if you would please introduce our
Sure will.
guest speaker.
Sure will. Okay, so remember this, he's outgoing, so if you'd like to say something, roast him, whatever, this is gonna be the chance to do it here tonight.
Mark, do you have any last minute pardons?
I could use one myself. Probably back a couple of parties. Okay, tonight we are honored to have Richard Bonaparte, who is our registrar. He's one of the hardest working men in the chapter. Any of y'all that have been registrars, you know what that means. And he still has a full-time job, and his wife hasn't divorced him yet. So I figure he's doing something right here. We just need to figure out how to bottle this so we can sort it out right. But anyway, he's asked me several times to make this presentation, and it sounds really interesting. Let's see if we can get it up here. You may want to see it. I think, okay. Anyway, so basically he's going to talk about his patriot, and as he calls him, it's the reluctant patriot. And it's the story of what he went through being a loyalist, if you will, I guess. And through end up deciding to become a patriot. So he says it's a very interesting story that he can tell us in 25 or so minutes. Okay, you're up.
All right, thank you.
And he works for a living and all of those things too.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Your
You're,
Good.
yeah, I think it's probably went to sleep on you. Just push the on button again, I think.
Oh, on this one.
Oh, yeah. Up there, yeah, there you go. Too many buttons. Oh. Okay, I think, give it a second to warm up.
Right.
Give us a preamble while we're.
Right.
Oh.
There we go. All right, well, it's a pleasure being here. Maybe just by a show of hands, everybody's a patriot in here, but for those here, who knows if they have loyalists in their bloodline? Anybody? I see a couple back there. All right, well, that's about right. You know, I came into this organization with one patriot. We ended up going with another patriot. I thought I'd talk a little bit about his life. We'll hustle through it. But you know, 15 to 20%. It's kind of the number we think about. 300 to 400,000 of the 2 million colonists living in 1775 were considered loyalists. Now, these guys are supporting the crown against an American independence. Now, you know, it's common knowledge that this has been argued as high or low, right? But I think most of us can come to the understanding that it was a difficult position for a loyalist to be in, living in the colonies prior to the revolution, right? But their lives, right? And if I look at, you know, if you look at them, I'm thinking, so a loyalist struggled with the idea of supporting a chaotic, dangerous revolution while trying to hold on to a life that they grew up with and that they brought into the colonies with them. I mean, their lives and these ideals were being challenged by new and exciting radical notions every day. And as hence the revolution began to appear on the horizon, many of these loyalists found themselves isolated and alone. And many were marginalized, and many were intimidated, many were arrested, and many were killed. I mean, if you take John Howard, he was a popular merchant. He was alone, no comfort, no friends. If you look at William Smith, he was a lawyer. He wanted to become a delegate in New York. He was threatened with death, and he suffered. The ex-loyalist officer, Richard Peters, he was taken prisoner, of course, by the Rebs, and he was subjected to great hardships. And if you look at the popular physician at that time, Dr. Edward Jordan, he died a loyal subject and hoped that his blood would not have been shed in vain. John was conflicted on ways to preserve a life that he knew was slowly being drawn into an unavoidable confrontation with the future of this country. And despite the rebellion and change and all the opportunities that he saw that was presented to him, he chose to stand firm on his beliefs, grappling with his loyalty to Britain while witnessing this extraordinary transformation all around him. Now, when we look at the Tysons, John William Andrew Tyson was the first to come to America. Right now, he was born in Shaftesbury. It was a village 2 miles north of Montcalm. He worked as a carpenter. He married his sweetheart Elizabeth May, and on the 24th of October, 1635, he boarded the ship Constance out of the port of London, and he sailed for the New World. And this family cleared fields and they built, and over the next 88 years, they thrived. They worked as farmers, they were expert coppersmen, they continued their trade in carpentry, and they were shoemakers. And so you'll see here, they had their first son, John Matthias, before they boarded the ship. And then John had Thomas, who had John Joyner, my guy, who was born in Bath in 1723.
well, what does this family believe in? Right? This American idea of theirs was still being formed. And they saw this idea of two nations, two sovereign states as radical. They saw it as a betrayal. Right? Of course, they opposed taxation. They always kept their word. Right? Their oaths. They had businesses and links and families back to Britain. They didn't want to jeopardize that. It was about keeping the peace and stability. They felt that independence would come about organically, and they remained hopeful that there could be a peaceful reconciliation. Now, when it came to the business operations, they saw themselves as key to their enterprise and operations, and they recommended legal, orderly, and prudent resentment when it came to this independent ideology. And they continued to remain hopeful. Now, when it came to the family business, John learned everything from his dad, who mastered the art of building relationships and working with a community. And he did so most of his young career working with his father on import-export. In the merchandising, trading, shipping, and agriculture, those were the key moneymakers for them, the areas that he worked most, but they also had other businesses as well here. The Tysons had a number of key businesses like the Tysons Tavern or the Tysons General Store. This was built in 1740 by his dad and his best friend, William Willis. In 1740, John was 17 years old. They sold tobacco and agricultural goods, textiles, tools, household goods. They were a post office. They provided credit and financial services to merchants and planners. They were an information hub. They were a trading post for Indian nations and European merchants. And they continued to grow. They had a pub on the square, the historical square. And they owned a mill on the Lumber River in South Carolina. In today's Sampson County, they ground grain, processed livestock, and did a bunch of other stuff. This is very similar to what his would have looked like at the time. All right. John also worked with these import companies with his father. He became very familiar with these. Many of these you'll recognize: Massachusetts Bay, Muscovy, East India Company, and Hudson Bay, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Tysons were big time builders in the area. Now, John's dad, he was able to collect big swaths of land in Virginia, North Carolina, and Virginia, but he was also a big time community developer. This is what John's first house would look like. Very similar. The top left is St. Michael's Parish, that's still there today. These three on the right are examples of homes that he would have built in the area, and they built many, many, many homes. They also owned over 10,000 acres in plantations. So this is the Tuscarora plantation. This was granted to John when he was 21 years old by Lord Granville. That was his first one. There was also the, this is, yeah, that's the Joyner plantation. So that was rice and tobacco. This was the Spring Hill plantation. That's in today's Bergen County. That was mostly tobacco. And then the Pamlico plantation as well. All right. Tysons were also owned a number of shipping vessels, right? And this was used to transport goods from the Carolinas to other ports of entry and of interest. They also had their own ownership and operation of their own wharf. This ship here is a ship that's very similar to what John would have used personally for himself. It's built after a Holland, what they call a cat, but it's not quite a galley, not quite a bark, very low draft. Got three masts. The original had two, but he'd use it to transport coal and wood and supplies, but mostly his family and other things for himself. They were also big time educated people, and they were respected in the community. But of course, this would pave the way for John to attend William and Mary's University College in Virginia, the second oldest. And John would go on to become a merchant and work very hard, become a lawyer, and become a politician. And all of these, he served the community, always had in mind to serve the community. But who was John, really? I mean, he grew up in a wealthy, prominent family in an established colony. And colony is almost 90 years old by the time he was born. And by the time of his birth, we saw the greatest migration of the Tyson family. 12 of the 492 homes in Pitt County, 2.5% were Tysons. They traveled, they had freedom, they had liberty to go where they wanted, they grew their family, they were happy people. And when the Lord proprietors were given the charter to establish and govern the colonies in 1663, the Tysons benefited greatly from the land grants or head right grants program. And that program continued technically until 1729, when all those grants were brought back from the Lord proprietors, and then England took over. They technically ended, but we know that those land grants continued because there's records of many of them up until 1777. Now, by the time John was a teen, he had, the family had obtained 1,750 acres in land grants already. John spent these years working with his father in the tobacco fields, raising hogs, developing, seeding larger farms, methods for doing that. They continued growing their relationships. They were improving their trades, and they continued. And by the time, and even to the point where John saw the dissatisfaction growing in the people from the neglect from the crown, right? And this would include the mercantiles who were forming cartels, right? And the merchants were restricting trade. And this was upsetting the Tysons because they wanted fair trade. And John even saw his own uncle, Henry Tyson, take up smuggling and bringing in heavily taxed goods like rum, tobacco, and tea, and ultimately getting arrested, as he should have, and punished. But he got fined and then was kind of let go to Tyson, right? Now, by the time he turned 21, he married his sweetheart Bethany Fahrenheit. And here's where he had the first opportunity to work as a key resource with one of the governor's councils. And he did so by helping build out a couple large warehouses in the area. They built one in Bath, they built one in Red Banks. And because he was a skilled carpenter, but he was also good with the family, and he was also a Tyson, they brought him in to help do some of this work. And this particular job that he did ended up becoming something very useful for him down the road. It paved the way for a lot of the other governors that he ended up working with. And then about 2 years later, John was invited to work and lead the effort to clear out the south side of the Tar River. So if you know, in North Carolina, they used the Tar River from the bay all the way up into the colonies. So they'd use it to bring supplies to colonists up, and then they'd use it to bring pitch and wood and tar down to the thing where they would build more ships. So they need to pull the rocks out, and they need to pull the trees out and widen it for everybody to use. This is also where by 1748, John would receive his first 350-acre land grants. Now, over his lifetime, he'd get a reported 2,378 acres in land grants. We think that number was actually well over 5,000, but this is the recorded records of what he got. And then he was able to see New Bern become the capital the following year. Now, what's interesting is at this time is when John really felt the pull towards government, the calling towards government. Now, remember, at this time in North Carolina, the Colonial Executive Committee was led by the governor with a legislature that had veto power, right? Comprised of a council's chamber and a general assembly. Right? And by the time of the revolution, all 13 colonies had this basic council assembly form of political system. Right? Council's chamber was considered the upper house of the legislature, where they introduced bills and they passed resolutions and decrees and petitions. They issued land grants and they put judges in place and so forth, right? Now, what you see here is, and in general, they serve the interests of people like creditors and landowners and business owners, etc. Right? And it was comprised mostly of lawyers, but there were merchants in the north and there were plantation owners in the south. Now, John was 31 years old when Governor Arthur Dobbs took power in 1754. Dobbs had 28 men on his executive council. Half were appointed from the crown and half he appointed himself. And John was one of these men. This is the first time he actually got appointed. He's worked with the councils before. He's worked as key resources before. This is the first time he actually brought him in to do specific work. And he would continue doing some good work. Now, John respected Dobbs because Dobbs desired to bring in the Church of England to North Carolina. He was already improving the educational system. He appealed to us as colonists to resist tyrannical oppression on our own lands. So Tom, he didn't want you rebelling in the street,
Right,
right? But it was okay to do it on your front lawn.
right.
He was okay with that. And he wasn't without his faults either. And from 57 to 60, he suspended several of his assembly members for daring to challenge his authority. And he was even less patient for those that missed meetings due to the lengthy distances they had to travel. Many people would have to go from like here to Salina by horse and make these meetings, or by carriage. They just didn't want to travel it. The absentee rate at some points was as high as 52%. Now, because of this good work that John was doing, he was invited to participate in the assembly at Beaufort as a commissioner. Now, if you remember, Beaufort County at that time, they were going through some changes, and the first thing he did in 1651 or 1751 was split Beaufort County. So they split it into two counties. Nathan would understand this. One half of this is going to go to Dobbs, and the other, or into Pitt County, and the other half is going to be St. Michael's Parish, right? And Johnson County was up there, and Dobbs over there. And so they did that piece. They also built a courthouse and a pillory and stocks and a prison, and they also appointed justices. And during this time, by the time John turned 40 years old, the proclamation of 1763 took place. Now, remember, this was originally put together to appease the Indian nation. So they created an imaginary boundary where colonists could settle between the Atlantic coast and the Appalachian Mountains, all that area in red. That's where you could settle. Anything beyond that west, colonists couldn't buy land there, nor could they enter into any agreements. And the Tysons hated that, as well as many others. They didn't like the fact that they were being restricted on where they could travel or where they were being limited to grow their families. And this, many of these people never even respected this. They continued to travel on and not like that. Now, one of the unintended consequences of Pitt County was the loss of taxable residents from that area. Now, as there were no county commissioners in that area to address the important matters, many of the issues got left over and in turn caused more problems in the collection of those taxes. Now, this assembly ran the line between Pitt and Dobbs County, something never been done before. And it was during this time that John Tyson and many others were given the job as commissioners to collect the taxes in those areas. And because many of the justices saw themselves as something other than where they were at today, they used this as an opportunity to promote their own agendas. And there was a lot of corruption at that time too. And by 1766, the regulator movement was spinning up and citizens were taking up arms against the corrupt officials. They weren't rebelling against the government, just the corruption. And they felt they needed better economic conditions and a better political process. Now, John, being a plantation owner and a successful justice, had a large contingent following, and many people saw him as a true leader, something the Patriots didn't like. And so on November 20th, 1768, John's old friend Edward Salter was now a deputy, presented John with a strongly worded, strongly delivered protest against his illegal conduct in office. I think they called it a remonstrance, and was ordered to justify themselves in court. So John, the subtext here is that John is still espousing the beliefs of a loyalist, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But he's still saying stuff that's upsetting these people. He's not changing his mind. He's not getting with the program. And these guys don't want him in office. He's popular. He's loved in the county, and he's successful at what he does. They don't want him to continue where he's at because they want their agenda to move forward, and I get it. So John is being punished. Now, John's got friends on the justices, and what happens is this case gets transferred to New Bern, where it probably disappears. And you'll see kind of a trend of that happening with a lot of what's going on with him. Now, John did some good work. He continued in this job for a few years, and by November of 1773, John gets his first command. Now, the field muster for the Pitt County Militia in November 18th, 1773 shows John commanding 7 companies, 562 men. And he did this for 15 months. This is prior to the war. So John is responsible for organizing these young men, getting them equipped, getting them to understand how to march and how to be organized. And he did that for a long period of time. And this continued until February of 1775, when the naval blockade of Boston kicked up and was causing problems for the committee. And it didn't take long for John's peers to use this as another opportunity to attack him, which they did. So they informed him that he had obstructed the contribution of relief to the poor. So if you remember, these committees are receiving funds, donations from churches. They give the churches a receipt, then they take that money and they give it to the poor, and then they make an account of it back to the committee. Now, a lot of these guys are stealing the money. They're taking the money, or they're using it for other stuff, or maybe they're falsifying records, right? This is not what John's about. There's no record that he's ever done that. And of all of these accusations that came against them, most of them, if not all of them, just disappeared. So that's another way for them to try and besmirch the good work of this man doing something there by ordering that. So that continued on. April comes around, and Josiah Martin is now governor. So he's been the royal governor for 4 years. He'd be the last British governor in North Carolina. Now, he was known for being determined and resolute, but he was also obstinate and inconsiderate and pig-headed. Now, if you take his personality failures and the failures of the regulation movement and the poor colonial sentiment for the taxes, they had continued complications with the colonists. Now, clashes have been going on in Virginia since they became Democratic assemblies in 1773. So this isn't new news. But like Virginia, North Carolina wanted to have a self-governing system as well. So even after Martin moved the assembly to New Bern, clashes continued. And when North Carolina pledged their support at the First Continental Congress, Martin canceled the Second Provincial Congress. Now, if we go to April, it's been 7 months now, we're still in April, and John still is still saying things in the assembly that's upsetting the governor and the council members. He wants to reconcile and not rebel. Okay? And that's heating up, but he wants to reconcile. He prefers that over that, and he's espousing that. He didn't believe that the steps they were taking toward the resistance were going to work. And he was outspoken about it. And the goals that these guys set, he was skeptical that they could even be achieved. And for all the talk about de-escalating, escalation with Britain was going through the roof. So he's saying things that's upsetting them. They're in turn trying to get him out of office because they want to move forward. What do? You go ahead and, you know, on the 20th of April, they're supposed to meet, but that was one day after Lexington and Concord, so they moved it to the 24th. And at that meeting, they said, they called him out again as speaking disrespectful of the committee and its proceedings. And they doxed him in the newspaper. And so there's no Facebook or Twitter back then. They just put him in the newspaper and said, you did this, that, and the other, and upset us. John's like, okay. Not gonna stop me. I'm gonna still speak my mind on that. Now, over time, these committees would ultimately evolve into like full-blown revolutionary meetings. Something the wrong way. So, yeah, a long way. So when July 14th rolled around, the Pitt County militia was formally authorized, and it was no surprise that it also included the formal transfer of command from John to Colonel John Simpson, one of his detractors, and also Lieutenant Robert Salter. So they finally saw a way to get him out of military command. We're done with you. We were just waiting, letting you do what you needed to do, and once we got our formal command, then we're going to move you right out of it, which they did do. Now, these meetings would continue to evolve into revolutionary meetings, and by August of that same year, Cornelius Hartnett's brought in, right? So he's put in as head of council to oversee the resistance to British rule. He quickly makes 6 military districts, carves them out, assigns representation in each one of them, and then across all 35 counties, he creates county militias. And many of the people, and many of these officers in the assembly went on to become military officers. Now, we're still in September, the following year, and John, it's been a year now, and John still hasn't sworn to the resolves, the sub-book resolves. This was a requirement for all these guys to serve, right? So he hasn't done that yet. They call him out again. This time, it's about you can't serve in a public capacity without swearing to the reserves. He's not a military officer anymore. He's doing a public job now. But that wasn't enough. So he ended up showing up and swearing to the resolves, and he moved on. Now, this was not a conciliatory act for him. John was more than happy to move on with his life. He's seen the change. He's ready to move on. And this was just the right opportunity. This was an acknowledgement now that the rebellion was here. Before he was pushing back on it, but now he's acknowledging it. He's condemning the intolerable acts. The loyalty to the crown, his loyalty, is shot now. He doesn't have that. All moderation and negotiation with Britain is over. It's all settled. And he's now calling for non-importation and exportation of goods to and from Britain. And most importantly, he can now operate in public without accusal and reprisal. Now, during the Revolutionary years, John, although he was not in military command, he did serve a big role. And I think what's important, the very first thing that John did, get rid of the screen. Yeah, so you'll see, he was, once you swear to the resolves and you kind of get your head straight in the game, now you've got the respect of the people that he's working with, so now they can use him, right? Before he was just kind of a loudmouth and he was kind of espousing the beliefs, he was turning people away from the cause, but now he's on board. So the Patriots are looking at him to resolve local issues. They're looking at him to feed and clothe and shelter the soldiers if needed, right? Remember, this guy's still fairly wealthy. Their family network is still in operations. They still got the wharfs, they still got all their warehouses, they still got ships, they still got a bunch of buildings. They're gonna use them all. And most importantly, because he was charismatic, they used him to recruit and to deal and to rally support in those areas, which he did do. Now, one of the key battles that he took place, and I'm not going through all of them, I'm just gonna introduce one, was this Moores Creek. That was the first one that he got involved with. He was responsible for putting together the battalions and the Continental lines and getting them equipped. But essentially, when Martin was losing control, he fled a couple times, but eventually he fled offshore to the British cruiser, the British warship Cruiser. And on that ship, he put together a plan to retake the colony. And it's a little involved, but he sold that plan to Cornwallis, and Cornwallis said, let's do it. And eventually they made it to a crossing where they met, where General Donald McDonald, no relation to Ronald, took his 1,600 loyalists down to Moores Creek and met Colonel James Monroe and their patriots. And they were stopped there and ultimately pushed back. And that was key. I'm calling it crucial because it was. It effectively, by most historians see that as effectively ending British control in that area. But what that means to us is they were sending down representatives in those areas to recruit soldiers and bring them in. They were doing it regularly, and they were crossing over these areas up through into Wilmington. And so this stopped that. And just as a side note, this was also the battle that had the last Highland charge. Like the legit, cross the bridge with the kilts and everything. That was the last one in the US. So here's some other battles that they participated in. Briars and Stono. All of these, he stepped in and did some control. He did some military control, but mostly logistical support in those areas. He did train. He also did equip. And also Weber's Bridge in Kingston. They actually technically fought in that twice. One's through it and one's coming back. Now his post-war life.
Go.
How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
So as the war ramped down, John did have to borrow some money to buy back one of his plantations. And that one plantation he used in turn to settle some of his personal debts. And when Governor Thomas Burke came into power on June 12th, he came to John to ask him to help solve some of the debt problems in North Carolina as well. John was happy to do that. He sold a number of properties that helped them out. As far as social stigma was concerned, for being doxxed in the newspaper, that was short-lived. They loved him. As a matter of fact, his measured kind of approach was endearing to a lot of these guys. And he just kind of shrugged it off, and said, all right, makes me a rock star, I'm gonna continue on. He went on to be a state rep again in 84 to 87. He worked as a county commissioner. He loved this job. He probably could have done this job his whole life, but really he operated in this kind of capacity pretty much his whole adult life. Dealing with people, helping them, growing the community, understanding their needs. That's really what he did well. But in this year, he focused on infrastructure and finance administration. They were growing out of control because they were in an area of reconstruction. And then from 88 to 90, he served as a justice again. And then he moved into some quiet time in his life. Now, he really didn't retire. What he did see was a move from crown allegiance to republicanism. This is why he's reflecting. He saw a move from established British authorities to the power of the people. He saw us move from a reliance on British markets to a self-sufficient governance, a move from just a single church to this diverse religious freedom. And importantly, a move from class and birthright, which he kind of participated in, to this idea of a status for society. We look at that like, we're a constitutional republic, a nation of ideals. Everyone's got equal opportunity to make it happen, not equal outcome, right? So the work that you do, the hard work that you do, is kind of what you get out of it. And then also his move from British protection to one of independence. Thank you. I'll pause there. Thanks for letting me share that. Does anybody have any questions for me? Kind of rushed through that because I wanted to make sure we were okay on time. If not, thank you.
Richard, it well done from informative, but the presentation and your putting it together is beautiful.
Thanks.
Oh, yes.
Where did you,
I used AI for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh. You have to be careful because you'll do this and then he'll have like a, I don't know, he'll have like a radio in his hand. Or I did a boat and then, like a sailing vessel from the 1600s and it had a smokestack on it. Yeah.
There's a town in Virginia that I've been to many times called Tyson's Corner.
Yeah.
Is that related to this family?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't put it down here, but, the Tysons, have a legacy, of course, right? So whenever you eat, Ballpark Frank or Jimmy Dean sausage or, enjoy Sara Lee cake or something, think of the Tysons. But in all fun, they had a huge legacy of that. And they were doing much of this stuff way back when. And, if there's anything that you do see about the Tysons, that they were hardworking people. And they came in here and they gave it their all. They loved each other. They were a good family, and they enjoyed working with the community. So if you know how to build relationships, you know how to solve problems in the community, you're gonna do well. Thank you so much. That was fun.
Well, I think this is the first time I've ever heard, at least anyone that has met, they use AI to generate their call. So we're
You gotta put in, some characters.
You gotta get the right
that you want, and then,
Yeah.
So we'll
not some of them, but some of them are from books and stuff.
So we'll talk about that soon. So, Richard, I'd like to give you the certificate of appreciation. It says, Richard D. Bonaparte, is hereby awarded a certificate of appreciation and recognition and support, providing an outstanding historical program to the McKinney chapter Sons of the American Revolution on this day. There it is. And we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do like this and smile at the camera. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
There you go, you can take that with you.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, come up next. Okay. So I think next up, wanted to say a word or two about the Patriot, George Bradford. Some of y'all probably remember him. He would sit back over in the corner at that table right there where Scott is right now, him and his wife Joy. Joy's our our DER representative to the local DAR chapter. So anyway, I sent out a notice on that when it happened, and I think that pretty well explained what was going on. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. Carol and I did go to, and Mark was there too, to his celebration of life activity at the church. And it turned out that everybody nailed it relative to what he was like, because I'd gotten to know him. He was a very interesting guy. So I won't spend a lot of time there, but I did want to tell you all, and I put it in, I think, in the write-up too. He wanted to be sure that he recognized this organization, okay? That was one of his desires, and it was pointed out in, basically an obituary and other things. The other thing he did, which I also mentioned to you before, was he did, his wife called me and wanted to know if we had some special project that he could basically, have some money sent to. And so, in the executive committee, we've talked about doing something for the 2026 celebration, 250th celebration here in McKinney. And we had various ideas. So I told her about that. She chatted with him about that, and he says, I want to do it. So basically, in lieu of flowers, he asked that donations would be made to that project in the McKinney chapter, Sons of the American Revolution. Okay, Mark and I were there, we were trying to scope it out. I think there was probably at least 125 people at his basically his celebration of life. And it was in every one of their little agendas, if you will, or on there. So, and Peter, who's the collector of the money, says we're already starting to get checks in on that. So we'll be talking more about that, but I wanted to let you know, he loved this organization. He was so proud to be a part of it. And at the end, he wanted to have a way to basically saying that by what he asked, instead of flowers, to donate money to this organization. So that's mainly what I wanted to tell you about that. So anyway, every time you think about George, just remember he loved this organization. Okay. Somebody else.
Tom, did you want to bring up the obit?
Oh. I didn't know you'd done that. See if I come up. There we go. So anyway, that maybe you'll remember it from that. Anyway, this is basically some of the stuff that I think it was a little bit different. That's the one from the again from the church service, but very interesting guy. One of the things when we were starting to give basically some things to Bonham, one of the things they'd asked for was some golf balls and things. Okay, so because at the Bonham VA, they take the guys out, that's another way where they can get out, talk with their buddies and hopefully heal a little more, because it is sort of like a recovery type place for mental and addiction type things. It turns out before it was over with, George donated 300 golf balls. 300 golf balls. He had them in his garage. He would love to golf. He said, I want to give them to these guys. I go over there, thinking, I'm going to get, a couple of dozen golf balls. He starts bringing them out from here and there. And the next thing I know, I'm taking 300 golf balls up there. He's that sort of a guy, Anyway. Okay, that's him. So let me see. Let me see that up there. What we got next?
We have
Induction, right?
induction, yes, and we are fortunate to have our state president, Tracy Powders, here. To do our new member induction.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Will our new officers please come? Come on down.
Come on down.
Come on down. And it is an honor as your state president for 2.5 more months to lead in this while everybody's coming up. I want to let everybody know this is not just the induction of officers, but it is a celebration of continuity. In our country, we have a hard time getting people to volunteer and to read the minutes of the last meeting. And this organization does not have that problem. We've got people stepping up, and I will tell you, that is cause for great celebrations. This is a celebration. Gentlemen, please raise your right hand. Having been, oh, there you go, sorry. Having been duly elected to your office in the McKinney chapter of the Texas Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, do you promise and swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution and bylaws of the National Society, Sons of the American Revolution?
I will.
I do. The good sign. Do you further promise and swear that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office to the best of your knowledge and ability, and that you will at all times conduct yourself in a manner worthy of our society. So help you God.
So help me God.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. One of those.
And thank you very much. Now, don't run away. Don't run away, gentlemen. We're not finished here. All of y'all out here, I want you to stand up. Just about the right hand. I will support these officers in their work. And I will pay my dues on time. Thank you very much. Congratulations, everybody. I'm gonna shake your hand. No, don't go yet. We're not quite done. We're not quite done. And congratulations on your escape. As the I know I could do this as the president, but would you, as the outgoing, like to present the gavel to the incoming? Thank you. And Mr. President, congratulations, and good job. And that concludes this. Thank you, gentlemen. Go ahead and have a seat.
Thank you so much.
And I think we're gonna move on to the next induction, correct?
Yes.
That's you, yeah. This is another celebration of a new member of this organization. It was not long ago that this organization looked like it might not survive. I would say its heartbeat is beating very strongly right now, and I am so thankful for that, and especially Nathan, you're the one that said, hey, this can be done. And I mean, this chapter, if y'all don't know, Nathan saved it from the chopping block, literally. But I want to, we're going to induct you as a new member, which is a very great celebration. Do you, as a descendant of one of our patriots and heroes of the American Revolution, reaffirm your ancestors' faith in the principles of liberty in our constitutional republic?
I do.
And will you pledge to support the National Society Sons of the American Revolution?
Yes, I do.
I now take great pleasure in presenting you your membership certificate. In a really cool envelope there. Yeah, what's your, who sponsored you?
Tom Russell.
Tom, see that?
Oh, Nelson.
Yeah. Okay, come on, stand up.
Tom, oh, I get up.
No, you're not gonna do that all the time. The Patriot Smithson sponsored you into the society. I would like to ask them to come forward and place the SAR rosette on the lapel of your coat.
Okay.
It doesn't count unless there's blood.
Oh, are you ready?
There we go. It's gotta have some pain.
Oh, I gotta.
No pain, no gain.
I'll move you. Gotta get the thing on.
It was like when they swore in knights.
Congratulations.
So they appreciate your obligation.
Well,
Rosette is the official recognition and emblem of the Sons of the American Revolution. Its blue and buff colors represent the colors in the uniform worn by General George Washington. Wear it proudly and often. And I think that's really about it. Other than saying, hey,
would you like, do you want to say a word or two about your Patriot?
Sure. Let's do it. Here we go. Well, his name is David Kingsley. And I don't know a lot about him. I know about a lot about his other relatives. My family, well, my mother passed away about a year ago. I found a stack of papers in her closet, and I started pulling the threads. And actually, there's quite a bit of heritage in my family, which I do know about. But David, I guess, is kind of a black sheep of the family. There's virtually nothing about him with public records that I'm working on it.
That's it, that's good. Well,
Yeah.
This is, in addition to your membership, you've got a membership packet here. It's got your membership card here, carry that with you, again, if you go to the bar and there's a bunch of people from the SAO there, you don't have your membership card.
New rule.
You're fine on drink. Hold on to this, do not lose this. And one other thing I'm gonna suggest, and nobody told me this when I was a new member, but I'm gonna tell all of y'all out there. When you get a certificate for doing something, keep that certificate, find someplace to put it, have a box or a folder that you can put those in there. Trust me, there's gonna come a day when you're gonna need to know when you got recognized for something, and just do that. So much of, I've been a member for 32 years, and I got probably 29 years of certificates that are just lost. So just, make sure you put them all there and keep it all in one place.
Doing a 50-mile round road from Houston City.
You're good.
Another night.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Good.
All for the.
According to the agenda, we have announcements. Any announcements to be made?
Okay.
No announcements.
Yeah, let's see. Just the ones that are written down there.
Okay.
Hey, has everybody paid their dues? I don't see anyone raising you. Everybody paid. Okay, so here's the deal. For whatever reason, if you're having trouble, you're not sure how to do it, I didn't get a card in the mail, call me, okay? And I've got a deal for you. I can get it done in about 3 minutes, okay? But the way I have to get it done, I'll have to collect the money from you to do it, but you can owe me, okay? So all you gotta do is you're having trouble getting in to renew your membership, call me and we'll work through it and get you back in, okay?
Give me your telephone number, Tom.
Oh, I gotta do that.
What if they got-
Everybody wanna write that down? I'll give it to you. 214-491. 214-491-7849. There you go.
Was that a collect on?
It'll cost you money for it. Okay,
On announcements, Tom,
yes,
Bob Millie, for events, Bob Millie says, next month, February 22nd, is the big event in Laredo celebrating George Washington's birthday. If anyone's interested, 6 a.m. Show up at the International Bridge Parade show. Starts at 8:30 a.m. It's usually a pretty big event, I hear.
real big.
Let me say a word about that. This is the largest George Washington Day parade in the world, in Laredo, Texas. And if you really wanted to see a spectacular event that you would not otherwise expect to see, this George Washington Day parade, there are Mexican bands, there are the young ladies in formal dress on the flatbed trucks and so forth. It is a very big deal in Laredo, Texas. And you wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it. So,
To add something to that, it's not just a one-day deal, it's an entire week. They have a pageant and the ladies wear period costumes that weigh 70 to 100 pounds. They are very ornate. They have a shoe contest where women decorate their shoes. And if a lady goes there, like my wife and I would go every year, they would always ask her, show us your shoes. And the first year we were there, Laura kept saying, "I want to see my shoes." And then we found out about the contest. But it's very, very, and in one day, there's over 50,000 people in Laredo. And crossing the bridge ceremony is wonderful.
And I always tell the story about our chapter down there. We have a chapter in Laredo. And at the time that I was state president, we had that chapter installed. All the members in that chapter are Hispanic, and all of them are descendants of Patrick Henry. How could that happen? Patrick Henry's grandson, William R. Henry, came from North Carolina, I guess it was, maybe Virginia, to San Antonio, became sheriff in Bayer County, married a Hispanic girl. They had a daughter. She married a man by the name, I think his name was Garrett, but I'm not positive. And they moved to Laredo. And as the Bible said, they begat and they begat. And the consequence, they have a number of members, all of whom are descended from Patrick Henry.
Thank you. Do we have any other announcements? We want to move on to old business? Any old business need to be put to bed? I don't hear any old business. Good. Okay, looking at the agenda, our next meeting will be February 20th. Upcoming events and dues on the agenda, back cover.
Pay your dues, you have done.
Tom gets to say that again. Would you like to give your number again?
Now we're fine.
Any new business? Yes, go ahead, Bill.
I have a presentation I was made. I have a presentation, the National Society has created a new medal for education. And for the 250th anniversary, they came out with a bunch of challenge coins. And I got some, and I would like to present one to Tom Nelson.
I'll get you back.
Now, this is an education challenge coin, and on the back is the 250th anniversary. And I just got my education medal that you can get. Anyone in the society, if you work with kids at a school, if you do 15 events, you get an education medal. Okay? And Tom and I have done a lot of things in schools, and he could earn this medal as well. Tom Van Vossen has 18, so he's ordering his medal now. And
I'll let you help with that.
I want to thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you
This
too.
this guy is really good with the kids. We did one this past week and had a ball.
It is.
Is there anyone that's a member of the color guard in this right here, right now, that's had 5 events last year? Any color guard member that did 5 events last year?
Probably Tom.
Any color guard member that has done 5
Yes,
events?
I probably Bob been away on mine.
Please come this way. Bob, you're too late if you got here.
He's waving.
Again, USAR has a 250 medal, challenge coin. And I got one for our color guard members who did 5 color guard events last year.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other chapter awards?
Yes, you got some chapter awards.
Okay.
That's baby.
Thank you for getting
You got mine, here. Yeah, there you go. Okay. I think we want.
So the outgoing president is able to give the Distinguished Service Award. And it's only, given by the president, number one, and secondly, you can only give the award for each year that you've been in office. So we have 2 awards tonight. We'd like to give, first to Blas Uribe. Yeah, please. Congratulations. As you all know, that Blas has been very active in our chapter for a long time. He monitors the online presence for our members who can't make it, whether they're traveling like David McKenzie is sometimes, or whether they've been ill and can't make it because they're hospitalized or for whatever reasons. A very important job, but a lot of times goes unseen. Additionally, Blas is very involved in the newsletter and helping get all that put together. And it's a very important member of our group, and his medal is well deserved. So again, congratulations.
You got a good one already? Okay, you already got one, that's fine. Okay.
Additionally, the second, Rich Bonaparte. Please from the gentleman.
Thank you.
And Rich has worked numerous hours and has spent a great deal of time and has updated our process and has moved through a tremendous amount of persons and getting them approved and in the pipeline, extremely organized, and has helped our chapter tremendously. So here's your award and certificate.
Wow. How many here today that are gonna be working? Here. We had at least 2, right?
We got 2 signatures tonight, but another 4 in the.
Okay.
In the wings.
Okay, there you
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Scott, did you get it? Did you figure out how to get it?
One more announcement. One more announcement.
Yes, one more announcement here.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone knows that Bob Millie is a new father and he has his baby online here. So I wish I could enlarge it. But if anyone wants to take a little sneak peek there, it's congratulations,
He's
Bob.
probably weighing 10 or 11 pounds.
He's waiting.
Did you say 100 pounds?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, he said thank you.
Next is state topics.
Oh, yeah, okay. I think I can click this right here.
T3,
Yes, D1.
is a commercial coming up for selling tickets?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're waiting for that.
Okay, thank you. I'm parked out in front where all the
You're
cars
parked
are.
out in front? Oh.
And if you don't get any sales,
Yeah, you're. I know you're gonna
flashing
be
of
gone.
tires. There's a,
This is the guy, this is Tom Whitelock, the guy that's over our raffle for what I'm fixing to talk about here in a minute. Or just right now. Let's see, can I make that bigger? I should be able to, shouldn't I? I would think I can do it. Where's the little picture thing that I do that with?
Hit that play button, Tom, on the left, right there.
There you go. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so a couple of state related topics. We're gonna have our, basically our 130th convention, state convention here in Richardson, Texas, the end of March, last weekend in March. So I guess that means 130, that means probably that Texas SAR has been around 130 years, right? So big deal, okay? So we're working toward that. And if you get a chance, it's here close, I would recommend, even if you don't want to do all the banquets and all that stuff, come down and register and listen to it and see some of the people and what goes on at the state level. It's a very educational thing. And like I said, I've learned a lot, and on top of all of that, I've met a bunch of really fine individuals, fine men, okay, and ladies too, yes, sir.
And we need volunteers. to
Yes.
help us. So please do not be bashful.
Yeah.
Please help us.
Yeah, right. I've already got some committed. You're already home. Depends on what happens right around that weekend. So anyway, so again, I wanted to just remind you that. But then I wanted to tell you, let's see. Yeah, okay. So each year we have a raffle to help pay for this, okay? And so usually what happens is in the raffle, what happens is you either, when you go online to register, you can buy raffle tickets or you can buy them when you're there. So it's really the people that are gonna go to the meeting, et cetera, do it. Well, the guy that was harassing me a while, that's T1, Tom Whitelaw. Basically, Tom came up with the idea, we need to open this up to all the members, okay? So that's what we've done. We're opening it up to all members. You don't have to come to the meeting, don't have to be present or in. And so what we're doing this year, we're trying to encourage our color guard and that sort of thing, some too. So basically, what it is that if you win this raffle, you get a certificate at one of the colonial attire vendors that make different colonial attire for basically for $600. And there's a second place, you get $250 and you'll get a gift card and whichever one you want.
175.
Also, guys, if your wives or others are in the DAR, you can also, they could use that, or kids that or whatever. And a lot of the guys that are in the color guard buy various things, including artifacts and other things like Bill Watts and stuff. So it's sort of fair game, whatever you want to do with it. So anyway, this is what it is. $10 a ticket, 3 for 25 or 12 for 100. Okay, so we're trying to do that. So if you want to buy some, contact me. I've already given you my phone number, so you know how to get hold of me, right? Contact me, or you can come up after the meeting and we can take care of it that way too. So again, it's an opportunity, again, to sort of participate and maybe be able to win a gift certificate to one of those places. And we could use some more color guard people, so it would be wonderful if someone here wanted this. Okay. So I think that's that. The other thing I want to do is Tim, would you come up here for a minute? This is Jim Akers. He's a dual member of the McKinney chapter. He's a past president of the Denton chapter, and he lives in Plano. Now that makes a lot of sense, I know, but I've never even tried. And on top of that, he's really a great guy. Okay, so I think probably most of you know, for the past 2 years, I've been District 11 Vice President. And for some of the new guys here, basically Texas is divided up into 11 districts. And each district vice president usually has, on average, like 5 chapters that it sort of worries over, if you will. Make sure the word gets down, things that need to be done, get done, help the chapter presidents and that sort of thing. And we all report right up to our president here, okay, for another 2.5 months. Okay, so anyway, so after 2 years, I decided I need to lighten up on some things here a little bit. So Jim, I'm not how graciously agreed to it, but after he thought about it for a while, he has agreed to, yeah, I know, I agree. He has agreed to take over. So I wanted to introduce you to Jim. A lot of you know him. He comes to our meetings pretty faithfully, along with this beautiful bride, right? Come to the meetings. You're welcome. And anyway, I wanted to meeting. So starting basically the 1st of April, I guess he'll be basically the position will, he'll get that on the Saturday night during this convention here. He'll be appointed, and he'll be here to help not only this chapter, which he's in, but the Paris chapter, which I took him to, and you're in, the Greenville chapter, the Denton chapter, and the Sherman chapter, okay? Two of those chapters are struggling, okay? but it's gonna be an easy job to get through there. Anyway, I just wanted you to meet him, give him a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you for so long.
Okay. I think that's all I had. Did I forget something? Okay.
Okay, the December minutes are online and also they came out in the newsletter. Do we have a motion to accept the December minutes?
Bill Wise.
Is there a second? Beg your pardon?
Joe Chenoweth.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of accepting them? Say aye.
Aye.
Any dissenters? No? Okay. Peter, would you come forward and give us our treasurer report?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you.
All right, here's the treasurer's report for January 16th, 2025. So our funds at the last meeting were $642.44. This month, we had $95.52 for gifts for fallen veterans. And we got some income, $20 dual membership due. Our available funds are $566.92. And our CD has a balance of $5,236.95. That matures on April 26th. We'll probably withdraw our funds from them at that time. We've so far collected $175 for the 2026 project.
Right.
And hopefully we'll see more of that. Any questions? Thank you.
Peter.
I will, for what we usually do each year, we will conduct an audit, like we've done, every year, basically.
That'll be done in February. Pete and I have already discussed.
Okay, y'all already talked about it.
Yeah, we got that
So anyway,
lined
so
up.
we'll go through and audit what he's got, so Paul will know what he's getting into for sure by then. Okay, so, anyway, so.
Slippery characters over here.
Oh, yeah, right.
Thanks, signature.
So the job of president of our chapter has some benefits and some detriments. And one of the detriments is that the president normally is a signatory on the bank account. And as the outgoing president, I would like to see if anyone would make a motion that I be removed from the bank account. So I cannot sign it. Peter, any second.
I'll second it.
And as part of this motion that our new president, Paul, be appointed as a signatory, so. And I'd like to call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Any other business or announcements from the floor? Hearing none.
He's ready to get out of
So
here.
they voted to remove you, do they need to vote to add him or?
Yeah.
Vote for it or?
Let us pray. The peace of God which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of God and of his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost be amongst you and remain with you always. Please join me in the recessional. Meet again. Let us remember our who gave us our Constitution, a Bill of Rights, and independence of reign glory, and a nation of free men. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
So the motion.
Yeah.
Was,
Yeah.
and add.
Yeah. I